affordable housing, we're going to see more and more kinds of things like this pop up. And that's why, to me personally, you know, I live in Central Austin. I've lived there for many years. I've seen my neighborhood change like crazy. And I see a lot of people are having to move. And obviously you're not talking about building in the city of Austin, yet we're going to see more and more of that. And I'm like Jeffrey, just curious to see what Code Next has in store for us. So anyway, so the next topic is really slightly different. It's really another alternative investing idea. So for those of you that don't know, we have a real estate team here in Austin. We also have one in St. Louis. And the reason we have one in St. Louis is because I had a lady that worked with me for 5 years, and her husband got his dream job in St. Louis, and she ended up moving there and starting a real estate team there. And that got me thinking, because she started to work with a lot of investors there in St. Louis. We have over 100 houses pending with investors right now in St. Louis, and the reason we do is that it's such a great place for investing. So I'm just curious, are any of you investors out of state or out of the city of Austin, I guess? How many here? Yeah. Where do you invest? I'm curious.
Michigan, Kansas City, East St. Louis.
Okay, East St. Louis, great.
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth? Okay, just your one property. Somebody over here.
Denver and Atlanta.
Okay, and I'm just curious, is that just you were curious, or it's maybe you live there, or you live there? Yeah, what about in the back?
Indiana and Ohio.
Okay, and is it because you live there, or you just thought it was a great place to invest?
It was somewhat accidental because it stemmed from a different kind of investment.
Okay.
So,
That sounds bad. Is that bad?
but the key for us has been having a team.
A team, yeah.
In
In the city.
area.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the only investing I've done out of the city of Austin is during the boom in 2005 and 2006. We invested in a condo in Phoenix, and we ended up making a bunch of money, but a lot of people who invested after us ended up losing a lot of money, so we lucked out on that one. But anyway, St. Louis has turned out to be a great place to invest for a lot of our clients, so I just wanted to share a little information with you. We'll have the mic there. Here it is. And you know, one of the things that we can provide as realtors inside of Keller Williams, and I'm not really here to sell you on Keller Williams, but we do have 167,000 agents in almost 30 countries. And so if you guys are looking to invest in other places, you know, it's kind of like what you're talking about, having a good team somewhere. You know, you don't want to just show up in a city and you know, call a sign, you have no idea if that realtor has any experience with investing. But you know, for a lot of us, it's really expensive to invest in the Austin area. You know, we almost can't afford it anymore, and the numbers don't look good, and we're not making any money, and we're like, yay, we've got equity appreciation, but there's no cash flow. And so for us personally, as a family, we're looking at St. Louis and some other places as a way to kind of supplement all of the net worth growth we've seen in Austin from some of these properties that we've had for so long, as you know, housing prices have gone up, with some actual cash flow, which is what we're seeing in St. Louis. So, you know, why invest in St. Louis? Well, there's lots of good reasons. It's got a metro area of 3 million. It's home to a lot of cultural stuff. St. Louis Art Museum, St. Louis Zoo, Missouri History Museum, St. Louis Science Center, and the Muni Amphitheater. And I travel to St. Louis quite a bit because our real estate team is there. And it's actually kind of one of these places that you've always heard of, but you've never been. And what's interesting about St. Louis is that it's very different than Austin in that not a lot of people are necessarily moving in and out. People stay, right? When you meet somebody at a party in Austin, the first thing you ask them is, where are you from? And when you go to St. Louis, literally every single person that I've ever met in St. Louis asks me this question: where did you go to high school? It's because people don't move, they stay there. But it has a ton of stuff going for it. It's got an airport with over 70 direct flights. It's driving distance to 8 major cities. You know, it's 2 hours from Chicago. It's close to Indianapolis. It's close to Kansas City. It's close to Memphis, Nashville. The average commute time is 20 minutes. It's actually a pretty moderate place. The average income is $45,000, and the top 3 employers are medical institutions. And Washington University also has a medical school and a teaching hospital, so part of their 10,000 employees are in the medical field. So basically what all that means is a very stable place to invest. You know, not a lot of people are moving in, so that we're not going to have this crazy market influx, but there's a lot of people there who need rental properties, and they're looking for just good housing. So what I did was I just pulled up 3 typical investments that you can find in St. Louis, and for those of us that are investing in Austin, you're just like, what? This is crazy. And these are in areas that I've been in. So this is an area where my partner actually lived, so it's not in Ferguson or something where you hear these terrible stories about race riots. It's actually very lovely neighborhoods. A lot of them are walkable. You know, you can walk to restaurants, you can walk to shops. It's very neighborhood driven. So the city of St. Louis is very neighborhood driven in that you are in a neighborhood and it has kind of everything you want right there. So this is just a single family home that you can buy in an area called South City. And you can buy a single family home for between $50,000 to $100,000. You might put in about $5,000 in repairs, or maybe not. A lot of them are turnkey. You don't have to do anything with them. And you get a cap rate of about 10 to 12% there, which is great. And then here's what's becoming very popular in St. Louis is the Airbnb phase is kind of catching on like it did in Austin a few years ago. And for anybody here have short-term investments? Any Airbnbs here? Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people that got into it, and then the city of Austin kind of crashed down on it. And the city of St. Louis is, for now at least, still very friendly to this concept of Airbnbs. And there's just not as many people who've done that there. So there's an opportunity to purchase an Airbnb. Again, you can buy something between $75,000 and $150,000, and they're renting for $70 to $125 a night. And so your yearly income, this is before expenses, of course, you know, can be anywhere between $10,000 to $30,000, which is great. So you've got a mortgage, you know, at $150,000. Okay, and then this is probably the best investment, which is cash flowing duplexes, and we're going to talk a little bit about house hacking later. But here's an actual example of a client we just helped recently. I know, you're shaking your head because it's crazy, right? Like, I'm giving you guys a gift. You all should go buy it in St. Louis.
Are materials cheaper there? 5,000?
The material, well, the labor's a lot cheaper. You know, our construction costs here are outrageous. We have clients that are moving here from all over the place, and they come here, they just cannot believe how much it costs to get vendors. It's so expensive. It's outrageously expensive.
So one of the things that we've noticed is that, yes, labor in Austin is high, but when you start going up into the Midwest, you're talking union.
Yeah.
So some of the labor seems expensive because
Yeah,
you have
that's a great point. Did everybody hear that? Yeah, it's got some union, and I don't know much about that. Nobody's ever said that to me in St. Louis, but that's a good point. And actually, you know, one of our partners there does a lot of rehabbing. So, but yeah, this is a duplex that you know, there's not always deals like this laying around, but they bought this duplex for $114,000, and at the time it was renting for $1,300 a month. They put about $5,000 into it, and now it rents for $1,800 a month. And they've got people coming in from all over the place. It's kind of the next thing. We've got people from California, Israel, China, Russia, who are starting to invest. We're starting to see large, you know, like Blackstone type investors who are seeing St. Louis as a very positive place to invest. So, yeah, I mean, any questions about that? No? You're gonna do it? Oh, and so, actually, I'm going to bring up Warren. So you guys don't know Warren, but he's been on my real estate team for about a year, and he is, how old are you now?
26.
26.
Yep.
He's my star pupil. Here, have a seat.
All right.
And what I think is really cool about Warren is that, how many investment properties do you own now? Here, I'll
So,
give you a microphone.
yeah, no, oh, you're fine. I have 2 properties right now, and then actually next week I'll be heading out to St. Louis to look at my third. I need a third. So for my girlfriend's income, she's on W-2. She wants to quit her job, start self-employed. So I need to find a house.
Yeah.
next week.
Well,
so.
tell us about, yeah, tell us about your first investment in St. Louis.
Yeah, so I really got connected through Roz, obviously, and our expansion team. And I just started looking online, and I was looking in Memphis, I was looking in Buffalo, Pensacola, all over the U.S. and cheap places where property taxes are low. Rents have sustained this amount and been going up, so I can cash flow on properties. And I came across, there's this Facebook group also. It's like an Investing in St. Louis, and it's really active, and there's lots of wholesalers and a lot of investors on the website. And I just got connected with different wholesalers, and there's this one property, and at the time I was still working on my license here in Texas because I moved from Colorado and needed a new license, and so cash was a little low. But I came upon a property that was $7,500.
Say that again?
It was $7,500, and by no means was it move-in ready, but there was a tenant already living in there. He had to go. But it's in a C-class neighborhood. It's not anywhere where we talked about before, gang violence, whatever it may be. And we purchased it for $7,500, and we had to put about 20 grand into it to get it passed. Out there, you have to have someone from the state or the city come inspect the home for your tenants to make sure it's up to code and livable, and then they give you a pass, or they give you items that need to be fixed within a couple months time frame for you to be able to rent it out to a tenant. So it's a little bit different. It's all a learning game. I learned a lot from it, but it's a little 2-1. Obviously, I'd recommend trying to find a 3-bedroom if you can for higher rents, but it rents for $675, and it's paid off. There's no mortgage, obviously, on a $7,500 property, so it's taxes are less than $600 a year.
I mean, $7,500. That's like a couple of cocktails and all.
So all you really have is is the maintenance, the taxes and insurance is what you're paying, and the tax rate there is just so low. Like I said, it was less than $600 a year this last year. That works out to, I think it's like 20 something, or excuse me, like $50 a month. So yeah, that was my first experience in St. Louis.
No,
And,
what were some of the challenges of investing out of state, and I guess buying an Uber?
Yeah. Well, the first challenge was, we talked about before, as far as like contractors go, they tell you a timeline. Sometimes it's a little off to when they can actually finish it and get it going. And then of course, I didn't know about the whole city going out and have to inspect it, so you have to have a waiting game on that. They come out, and then there's certain items that they wanted to be fixed, and then you got to fix them, and then they got to come back out. So I would say I guess obviously the challenge is that I'm not there, and I want to be there and telling them let's go. But it's just it's not realistic. That, and then it all adds up. If you don't have a tenant in there, obviously I didn't have a mortgage to pay, but you got to mow the lawn every couple of weeks or you're gonna get fined. You got utilities are still on. You got to pay for the sewer. You have all these expenses that add up without a tenant there, which they'd be paying for. So it's that hurts, I guess, your net income or your net cash flow that you're gonna have by the end of the year. So I think that's the biggest issue, was really just getting it going and getting someone in there and just realizing that it's a longer time frame than you think.
So I'm just trying to do the math in my head. If you're getting $675 a month before expenses, that's roughly like $7 grand a year, something like
Right,
that.
before expenses.
Right, before expenses. What? $8,100.
We did the math.
Okay. Yeah. And so basically, in about 4 years, you'll return your investment.
Sure,
right?
yeah, and that's absolutely the goal. And I try to budget like 10% for expenses. Property manager, of course, is super important out of state. I let them do their job. They're professionals.
And what are you paying a property manager there?
So right now it's at,
same as Austin, or?
yeah, 10%. I guess it's normally like 8 to 10%. And actually, I met him through Rosalind, or I guess James actually helped introduce Craig, and his name's Craig, property manager in Rosalind, and he's kind of the one-stop shop. So he's the property manager. He knows all the contractors, and he's a really reliable, reputable guy. So I called about 8 or 9 references that have used him to help rehab, fix and flip, whether it be that or just fixing up, buy and hold, to rent out. And he's been a great resource. He's very reliable. You hear these horror stories of paying a contractor all this money, and then, you never hear from them again out of state. So I really wanted to make sure that wasn't going to happen to me.
That happened to me in Austin.
So, again, I think out of state, the most important thing is find people you trust. And like the lady said in the back, you know, it's important to have a network or a team.
So what is your next property going to look like? You're going there, you're going this weekend or?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
So I'll be heading out there Tuesday and Wednesday. It's going to be somewhere between the 50 to probably 75,000 range. Putting 15% down. I know it's about to pay a little bit of MIP or PMI. But with that, you know, it'll probably be somewhere 3-bedroom, 1 bath. I'm guessing somewhere along the lines of that. I guess rent out probably in the 11 to 1,200 range. I just had a really good mentor of mine buy a house out there last week, 45,000, move-in ready, already has a tenant for 1,100. There's a lot of properties out there. It's not like
There's a lot of properties.
it's not like you have to go out there. It's not competitive like here. You know, got multiple offers.
Not at all.
It's
And what's
find one
interesting
you
about
like.
St. Louis is a lot of people own a lot of properties in a bundle, right? And so
Right.
you can get a portfolio, what's called a portfolio loan, and I hadn't really heard of it until we were in the St. Louis market. And so you can buy 20 to 30 properties all together with one loan. And like, for instance, I had a friend in California who sold their duplex for 1.6 million. And then they went and they bought 35 properties in St. Louis. And they're cash flowing like $10,000 a month. So the numbers are really good. But tell us what you would do differently this time if you had to do it again.
Yeah, a couple things. You know, I'd make sure I know that expenses obviously are going to be beforehand. I underestimated those. Secondly, the home's on a larger lot. So you think, you know, some tenants are skewed away by that. They don't want to deal with the lawn, the maintenance, or anything like that. And of course, when there's not a tenant in there and they do enforce, I guess they like the lawn short there. So they enforce, city enforces their code for the lawn, you know, pretty hard. They want it mowed, and if it's longer, they're going to fine you. So, you know, for a larger lot, I was looking at like $60, $70, you know, every couple of weeks just to get the lawn mowed. And I'm just like, you know, I need to get someone in here to mow it. And so that, and then another major thing that I would be looking for next week is I really want a house that's all brick. Just as far as exterior maintenance goes and everything, and mine's like vinyl siding right now, and just I'd rather have something down the road that, you know, will be, it's gonna be there, it's been there for like 100 years already, so I don't have to worry about paint or siding or the sun damage, you know, so.
And I would say a huge majority of properties in St. Louis are brick.
Yeah, a lot of them are,
It's very
so.
common. Yeah.
That's something I'll be looking out for as well. Just something so I have to keep my expenses lower so I can try to cash flow as much as possible.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Who's got questions?
Anyone?
Does Missouri have a state income tax?
They do.
How does that affect the income?
As far as, you mean like who?
Are you
Your income.
Are you having to pay income?
Gotcha. Yes, I am. I have to pay income, so my CPA is taking care of all of that right now. I honestly don't know a ton about that, but I do have to pay. It's like a separate, obviously it's a separate state, so I have to pay it through Missouri.
So you wouldn't be paying taxes on the income? Well, yeah, you would be.
Right.
Federal taxes.
Yeah, I
as
do.
well.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Taxes. Other
That's a good
questions?
question, though. Yeah, I learned that.
Okay, in the back.
So are you holding these properties in your own name?
So I actually, this mentor I met in Colorado when I was there.
You're gonna hold the microphone.
Yeah, hold it up, right? I actually hold them in a trust right now, and then like I'm a beneficiary of the trust. So technically, you know, I know it's not a big deal if you don't own a lot, because you know they're gonna look at your assets if something were to happen with the tenant, whatever it may be. But I've found it pretty easy to do, to put it in a trust and then be a beneficiary of that. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I think I'm just going to continue to do it. Might be a little more of a hassle when I try to sell it, but whatever I do.
One trust?
I have actually I have 2 separate trusts for both my investment properties, and I use my LLC as a beneficiary for both of those.
Is that
Yeah.
a land trust that you
Yep.
put it in?
Yep, exactly. It's a land trust for both of them. It is.
Hey, Jeff maybe knows the answer to our question. Do you happen to know the minute, I was actually going to ask you, do you know the minimum size somebody can build a house in Austin? There's a minimum.
No, actually.
Yeah.
I know that when they first started doing the ADUs, the minimum size for the ADU was 550 square feet.
550 for the ADUs, but for a regular house, we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it still 550? We
Um,
don't know.
you know what?
Yeah, somebody's gonna get this out.
Go buy
Calls
that.
me tomorrow, I'll get some free copies of one thing. Okay, any other questions?
All right, thank you guys, thank you.